There's not a day that goes by that I don't see someone hammering away at a chest workout to grow their chest, only to overlook one of the most important parts of the equation when they're done: stretching. And even then, of those that do save some extra time for a stretch, if what they do looks like this, they're getting it wrong. And that's why I made this video. What's up guys, Jeff Cavaliere, ATHLEAN-X.com, physical therapist and pro athlete trainer. Look, when it comes to the pecs, it's sort of a paradoxical muscle because you have two different pec muscles that you want to make sure you're taking care of. Number one, you've got the vanity side, the pec major, which is what everyone is in the gym trying to build bigger and stronger, but you still have to learn how to stretch it, and what I showed you before is not how you do it. But then there's this other one over here, and this is the pec minor, and this is the one that actually sets you up to do all of your chest training and to keep your shoulders safe in the process, and this is the one that gets no attention. So the first thing you need to know before you talk about gains is how do I stretch them properly? Well, we're gonna focus on that pec minor first. And the one thing I want you guys to see really quickly here is that on this muscle, it inserts on this area right here called the coracoid process. And why that's important is, look what it's attached to. Not just a tiny little bone, but it's actually part of the shoulder blade. So if you've got something that's tight that's yanking on this, the whole shoulder blade and shoulder posture is gonna get thrown off. And so what happens when we have a tight pec minor is three different things. Number one, when it's pulling on the shoulder blade, the first thing it does is pull down this way. You can see if I were to make that tight, it's gonna round the shoulder forward. And I'm sure you probably recognize this posture if you haven't really been stretching out this muscle. The next thing that it does is it actually rounds the shoulder blade around the corner. We call it protraction. Okay, so it's pulling down and in this direction. The third thing that actually does is pull the shoulder down, downward rotation of the scapula. So whenever you want to stretch a muscle, your job is to simply unwind what it does. So you want to do the opposite of all three. The first thing you want to do is get the shoulder back instead of forward, back. How do we do it? You got to use something. In the gym, the corner of a squat rack, or at home, the corner of a doorway. And all you want to do is just push yourself into that corner of the doorway, pushing the head of your humerus right here, that big rounded portion of your front delt, up into that doorway or side of the rack. Okay, from here, I'm positioning it back. The next thing I want to do is get that retraction of the scapula. So while I'm here, retract the shoulder blades, pull them back together. You're basically doing this actively to really squeeze your shoulder blades together. With that in place, head of the humerus up here, shoulder blades retracted. Now we have to get upward rotation of the scapula instead of that downward rotation. And that's really easy to do because all you have to do is raise your arm up overhead. As you raise your arm up, your shoulder blade will rotate up in this direction. And if you do this properly, you're gonna feel that stretch right in this muscle. And you can literally see it lengthen with the muscle markers. We have a length that's established right about here. When we get set up in this position and we raise it up, you can see the elongation that's happening here. And your goal is to do this 30 to 60 seconds twice in a session. And then when I want to see you do this for best effect is on the day that you're training chest, do it at night. And then also, because we heal a little bit shorter overnight, I want to see you do it the next day too. If you're training chest twice a week, that means you're going to do this 4 times, both on the days that you train chest and also at nighttime and also the next morning. Now, we have this other muscle here, and we're talking about the pec major. Now, there are 3 different heads to the pec major. We have the upper clavicular head, right? That's the area that a lot of us don't have good chest growth in, that upper shelf. Then we have the major sternal head here in black. And then we've got that little abdominal head that sort of frames the bottom or lower pec line. You can stretch all of them with a slight tweak to how you do it, but you're not gonna do that. Because what happens when you do that is a couple things. Number one, you're disrupting normal shoulder biomechanics and actually setting yourself up for an injury. Because when I do this, okay, what it does is it tends to shift the head of the humerus or throw it forward into that anterior shoulder capsule. And one thing you don't want to do is continually weaken or overstretch the anterior shoulder capsule. The posterior capsule is a different story, but here creates more shoulder instability. And by doing this stretch, you might feel it, but you don't need to do that because the pec actually inserts right here on the upper arm, the humerus, right about at mid-sternal level. And if we can stretch it by moving the arm in this position here, it doesn't matter what's happening at the elbow. That has no effect if we open the elbow or close it on the position or the insertion of the pecs here. So instead of getting extra long and creating a lot of torque on the shoulder, what I want you to do is the same type of idea. You keep your arms slightly bent, you stabilize the head of the humerus here up against the inside of the frame, and then all you're gonna do is rotate away, because all you're trying to do at this point is separate this point from the sternum, from this big heavy bone in your chest. If I can get the sternum further away from my arm here, then I'm gonna get that stretch on the chest without having to create all that extra torque by lengthening my arm out. Now again, I'm looking at a 30 to 60 second hold, but how do we stretch to different areas? If I wanna get more of that lower chest, then all I gotta do is raise the arm a little bit higher, but nothing changed. That head of the humerus is stabilized up against the inside of the door or rack, and I'm just rotating again. And I can feel that intense stretch downward. If I want to get more of the upper chest, all I have to do is sort of position or line up the lower portion of my forearm and do the same thing, rotate out, but keeping that shoulder pulled backwards. And you can see that now I'm getting that stretch more on those upper fibers. No matter what area you're doing here, you're going to aim for that 30 to 60 seconds. Now, how does this affect muscle growth? Well, some studies will show that you can actually stretch your way to bigger muscles. And to do that, you just keep stretching statically. That being said, it does take a really long time, and I don't think it's the most effective or efficient way to get chest growth. But the other way to do it is by incorporating stretch into the exercises that you're doing. And that's where you get exercise recommendations like a chest fly. And here's the reason why I don't like this. Because a chest fly to me, or sort of the typical Arnold fly, is basically putting us in the same position at the bottom. That was what I didn't like about that other stretch. That vulnerability to the anterior shoulder capsule, especially because we're unsupported here. There's nothing to give me any kind of safety net in this position. And a lot of times people will tear a pec in this exercise because of the unsupported nature of the exercise on your shoulder joint. So you don't have to do that. You don't have to have the dumbbell so far out. You can simply do something like a crossover, even just one arm at a time, that puts you in that safer position where the arm can be closer to your body. Because look it, if I'm in this position here and I'm rotated away and I have my arm close to my body there, I've got that maximum stretch going on between the insertion here and the origin here, okay? We have our arm back behind our body with a good loaded stretch. And of course from here, you're gonna go and perform a regular fly, but you don't have to be way out here to do that. And with the machine, we do have that safety net. If I do go a little bit far, I can simply rack it and I don't put myself in that vulnerable position. So if I did it 2 arms at a time here, again, you can see I have a really good safe position. I'm not overexposed by having my arms out too far. I can get all the benefits of training the chest, even in the different ranges of motion, to go from high to low to get more of the lower portion, or to go from low to high to get more of the upper portion. But either way, it's the combination of eccentric load, right? Some stretching with the tension of the weight itself that does provide a good stimulus for growth. So incorporating it is a good idea. Now, if you're looking to see how to stretch other muscles, we actually have a video I did a long time ago on how to stretch the triceps properly. You're gonna wanna watch that video here. If you're looking for how to put the science back in strength, guys, we do it in all of our programs over at ATHLEAN-X.com, as well as our supplements. Make sure you share it with someone else so they know how to stretch the chest properly. All right, guys, see you soon.